All right. Hi, hello, everybody. Welcome to our workshop from the Office of Insular Affairs, the grant manager team. Uh, can everybody hear me? This is our first time to do this, so we're just making sure everything is good and clear before we get rolling. So welcome, everybody. As mentioned, this is a workshop series put on by the grant managers of the Office of Insular Affairs. My name is Tanya Joshua, and very glad to lead off this workshop for our team today. Joining me from the Office of Insular Affairs are other grant managers. I see Christina Alfano on the line. I also see Haley McCoy on the call with us. I know that Miriam Porter is either en route or setting up, so she'll be joining us very soon. And we have some compact grant managers, grant managers from the Honolulu office I have a list of everybody who are the grant managers in the Office of Insular Affairs. So Christina Alfano, myself, Haley McCoy, Miriam Porter, we will be handling territory grants. And we also have the Freely Associated States grant managers, Ryan Edgar, Wei Hao Fang, also known as Jen, Martin Moore, and Rebecca Zepeda. So this is the team that will be managing this workshop series as we go forward. Some of them may already be familiar to you. Very quickly, just wanted to mention that our office has reorganized. So as you see, you have territory grant managers, Freely Associate. We're now organized by area. So that will, as we go forward in the next month, the month of April, starting tomorrow and going forward, you'll be hearing from your current grant manager or your new grant manager. We'll be working with all of you. Each one of the grant managers will be contacting you and letting you know who will be managing your grant going forward. And please keep in mind, this may take a little bit of time as we do the transition, but that's generally how you're going to see the work as we get settled. So for today, just this workshop series, wanted to let you know that we pulled this together to help so that first of all, we wanted to share notifications of grants publicly as widely and as publicly as possible. We're required to do this. And so this helps us achieve that purpose. We want to help you improve your submissions, grant applications, answer questions. We want to also improve the process of reporting when grants are already awarded and being managed as you go through the life cycle of the grant, through the life of the program. We want to share with you our expectations, what will help us help you better. We want to understand what challenges you're facing in your respective areas as you are managing grants, applying for grants, and all of that, the above. And so we plan to have one workshop once a month. And if one of my colleagues can drop the schedule in the text chat, if not, we'll drop it later in the chat for you. But I was showing the initial screen out earlier before we started, and we can also send that to you by email. Roughly, we'll go through today. So today we're focused solely on the NOFO, the notification of funding opportunity, and we'll cover other topics once a month as we go through the year. We have something once a month until December. So thank you again and welcome. I will go ahead and start unless there are any questions at the outset or anything that I've forgotten to mention. If my team can alert me, Haley will be monitoring the chat. So if you have questions and you want to just pop them in the chat, Haley will stop me and let me know if there are any questions. And Christina will also be helping on the line to make sure I'm not missing anything as we go through. So beginning with just generally OIA funding, if you want to know about funding that comes from the Office of Insular Affairs, check out our budget. I put the URL right there. It's on our website. Every year, the budget team submits our budget. There's all kinds of different pots of funding, but there are 5 these discretionary pots that we are focusing on today through the notification of funding opportunity. One example that we're not addressing tonight is the compact funding. That is done through a whole different GEMCO process. There's a whole different method for that in terms of that funding. And then there are other smaller grants, for example, American Samoa Operations, totally operated totally differently. The 5 grants, the process that we will be going through today and throughout the rest of this workshop series will be focused mainly on these 5 discretionary grant programs. They all operate under a notification of funding opportunity that goes up on grants.gov and that you apply for. So just want you to have that reminder as we go forward today, as well as throughout our workshop series. Thank you, Christina. I see our schedule up there. Thank you. And keep in mind that that schedule may change, might alter a little bit as we go forward. Things might come up, but generally speaking, that's what we plan to cover. So where do you apply when you want to apply for funding? You must apply through grants.gov, search 15.875. That's our number. Every single federal agency that has funding to give out to the public posts it here at grants.gov. That's the number for the Office of Insular Affairs, 15.875. If there are any changes in that number in the future or additional numbers, we'll let you know. But for now, it's 15.875. And when you go to the website, yes.
Sorry, quick question. I just want to chime in real quick. The 15.875 only applies to the discretionary grants that we're talking about today. If you're familiar with one of our other grant programs, like Tanya mentioned, American Samoa Operations, CIP, or the Compact grants, those are now listed under a different assistance listing number. So these are only for the discretionary grants.
Okay, yes, that's where that comes in. And those would be different programs that would be operating. That number would be important for when they're working in grant solutions, maybe. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, all right. So we're good then. Okay, that's good. So the discretionaries so far will stay, and there you see them, the 5: coral reef maintenance, energy energizing insular communities, brown tree snake, and technical assistance program. So that's what you'll see when you go on the website. A quick reminder is that Monday, May 18 is the deadline for applications at midnight, 11:59 p.m. Don't wait till 12:00, please. And also know ahead that there will be maintenance on the grants.gov website that weekend. So it will go down. I have the flag later in our PowerPoint, but it's going to go down that weekend. So you'll want to plan well ahead. Please plan ahead. We do not control grants.gov. We only work on, DOI.gov. Something to keep in mind is that we are also different federal agencies. We have different areas. So even though, we're telling you to apply through, we don't have any control over this. So please make sure to plan ahead. As you go through the NOFO, the application, one of the notification, let me just see if I can. I don't know if I can show it, but if you are looking at your application, I'm going to basically follow the order of the NOFO. So one of the first things it discusses is eligibility. So all of the insular areas, American Samoa, CNMI, Guam, Virgin Islands, FSMRMI, Palau, local governments, government agencies, component units, hospitals, for example, and nonprofit organizations are eligible. If a nonprofit organization from outside of these insular areas applies, like a U.S.-based nonprofit such as, off the top of my head, TNC, Nature Conservancy, as long as the program is benefiting one of the insular areas, then it would be eligible. Otherwise, not. And very judicial and legislative branches are not eligible as well. No questions thus far. Get ready for those who are first-time applicants, haven't applied ever before. You will need a UEI. You must go through sam.gov to make that application. And if you look at page 3 of the NOFO, it's at the very beginning. It says, get ready to apply. And the instructions are there very clearly how you would apply if you've never done this before. So please follow those instructions. All of those websites are fairly clear, pretty clear, but we will always refer you to those websites on how to set up your UEI and make those necessary administrative prepare to apply. And we also have, I thought that I had it here on our on this page, but it looks like I don't. On our website on www.doi.gov/OIA financial assistance, if you go to that page, you will find also direct instructions on how to apply for if you're a first timer. In each of the NOFOs, you are going to see, it's called the program overview, the objective of each of the grants. The objective of the grants hasn't changed for those of you who are familiar. TAP is the most broad and can address most everything that's economic, financial, government services. It's very wide ranging. Maintenance is focused primarily on maintenance and related needs like equipment or training. Coral reef and natural resources, as the name implies, is focused on coral reef, invasives, and natural resources generally. Energizing insular communities, I believe that's what EIC stands for. The focus is energy. So when you are on the NOFO, you will see under the program review, each of those, each of them will give the specifics on what they are for. Keep in mind, TAP is allowable for all insular areas. MAP and CRNR are also for all insular areas. EIC is only for the territories, and BTS is only for Guam and the CNMI.
Tanya, can I interrupt for just one moment?
Please.
Oh, sorry. I should have clarified with you ahead of time. For BTS, there is an opportunity this year for some of the freely associated states to actually apply for that funding as well.
Okay.
To be rapid response trained for BTS, but the appropriate agencies from those areas will be contacted about that separately. But I just, in case any of them are on, that there is an opportunity this year for those areas.
Okay, for rapid response, should there be a need?
Yeah, for rapid response training, specific for the brown
for
tree
training. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Okay, that's great. Better to be prepared now than to be hit with the problem later.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yep.
And anything else to add?
No, that was it.
Any questions from our guests thus far? Seeing none, please just raise your hand and Haley will interrupt. Yes.
We do have a question. Will the slides be shared? I think because we don't have a full list of who is here, if maybe you could email whoever you received the invitation from here at OIA and we can get you a copy of the slides. And I believe we'll also make this available on our website.
Yes, we can do that. Let me just plop in the DOI, or maybe I'll ask Christina if you can just type in our website link to the financial assistance page. Just drop it in the chat, and we'll make sure we'll use that as a kind of like a base.
Will do. Thanks
for sharing info. All right. So moving forward for awareness, these are the total on this slide right now. These are the totals of the funding available, roughly, to give you a general sense. And then we've put in numbers in parentheses, sort of the numbers of applications that are expected. This, of course, can all change. These are just estimates. So I say you have an application, you have a need, you submit your application, just go for it. The most successful application will be the one that has the best justification. Well, let me take that back. Even the best justification isn't, because there are so many priorities that we are also balancing at the Office of Insular Affairs. There are different priorities that might come in. There are different urgent matters that might come in. But just to give you a rough sense, this is the basic amount of funding that you are going to be seeing from each of these programs. This year, something that's new is we did not give you a maximum limit. In prior years, we used to say your maximum application amount should be 250,000, 300,000, 400,000, whatever the number. But this year we did not put a max, but we did reiterate and say, make sure you have a strong justification. Probably the higher the amount, the stronger the justification. So, and then also when you go into higher amounts of applications for funding, we ask you to also break it down so that if we need, or we can only fund a certain part of your grant, then we might choose a certain line item or different. If it's tiered, it's easier for us to, rather than just completely dismissing your application, we could theoretically fund one part of it rather than the whole thing. No match is required. That hasn't changed. That's the same as it has been throughout the years. On our next slide, you will see generally the allowable activities. Those are also on the NOFO. You will see them clearly. Check each NOFO to tell you what is allowable, what is not allowable. It changes depending on which grant you're applying for. As I mentioned, TAP is, of course, the most flexible. And then not to mention, of course, 2 CFR 200, which is another guide for us, a very important guide for us that shows what is allowable and what is not allowable generally when you're doing federal grant funding. These are some pretty strong funding restrictions that are listed in the NOFO. So they're just listed here as a reminder. Generally no routine operating expenses, no standard equipment, no routine vehicles, specialized equipment may be allowed, no salaries for existing employees, although you can apply for funds to get consultants. In the NOFO, you will see the required forms for application. We created a very, well, there is a table. There has been a table in there that shows you what forms are absolutely required in your application. So generally, the guidance that's given is make sure to check all the presidential actions at whitehouse.gov. You will see that in the NOFO, the website to check, so that you know what the current, whichever administration is in power at the time or in leading at the time, you will want to make sure you're checking what their presidential actions are, as well as secretarial actions, so that you know what administration priorities are going to be. You want to tailor your applications based on those priorities. That's where you'll likely be, you'll get more scored better if you are. Now, if you have an issue or a problem that, you don't see it in an action, that doesn't mean you can't apply. Again, you'll want to make sure you're justifying and explaining your grants as best as, put your best foot forward when you apply. So the forms that are required are listed in that table, which are the 424, the 424A. If it's non-construction, the 424C, if it is construction. A project abstract is required, that we load that up into spending.gov so that they know what's happening, with the grant, what the grant is all about. Audit timeliness and audits for your organization is very important. That's a priority this year for the office. And so if you don't have your latest audit, you'll need to answer financial capacity questions. That hasn't changed. We've always had that, but just know that audits are, everybody in the insular areas now is under the microscope for audits. And then the lobbying form, which hasn't really applied to most of you, but those are the required forms. Don't forget to use the correct UEI when you apply. I thought I saw a hand, Haley, for questions.
Tanya, we've got a request from Astica. Could we please go back to the restrictions page?
Oh, sure. Funding restrictions. What's the question?
No, that was the question, to go back to the restrictions page.
Oh, okay. Just to see it again, maybe.
Can a licensing fee be used? Tofina, would you mind coming off mute and just clarifying that? Or typing it into the chat. I think it likely depends on the program and the scope of the project, but don't want to specifically answer.
Oh, okay.
I don't think we can. You should be able to come off mute, but I guess not. I thought it was just for muting upon entrance.
Huh. Oh, okay. It looks like I'm able to.
Oh, here. Tafika, could you try again? I think I just.
Okay, here, let's see if I can unmute.
I just clicked allow participants to unmute themselves.
Oh,
So
okay, good.
hopefully.
Okay. Okay, looks like we're having some technical difficulties with the mic.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Great. So our annual licensing fee, SEC licensing fees, can those be used for as part of our the projects that we submit? Can those annual licensing fees be included?
I think if that's a typical operational cost, that is not something that we would generally fund out of our discretionary programs.
Okay. Yeah, I was just asking. I was wondering.
Yep. No worries.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do we
Thank
have
you.
any other questions? All right, moving forward. I think one of the points about the TAP program is to support programs and needs that are new, maybe urgent, but not so much. We don't want to take over the government's responsibility for managing regular expenses that the governments themselves should be handling. Okay, so required forms, that's in the, so one thing to notice in the NOFO is there are two separate narratives. There's just the basic narrative that's, telling about the grant, the program itself, and there's the budget narrative. So the first narrative is you're telling, the need, what your performance metrics are going to be, NEPA considerations. So for all grants that are in the U.S. territories, NEPA, we must follow NEPA. So if you think that if your application is just for meetings or doing something or maybe buying equipment, that's not going to impact the environment. So you need to answer the questions that are in there. But if you know for sure that your application will have some impacts on the environment, like the CRNR for sure, those grants, you will need to pay very close attention to the NEPA questions that are in the NOFO and make sure to answer those. The more thorough that you can be in answering all those questions at the outset, the better it is, because even if you do get, say we accept you for a you are accepted for a CRNR grant, you cannot start until an authorization to proceed has been issued. So we have a team with the U.S. Army Corps, and they help us review all the applications all applications for NEPA. And if there is NEPA, there is going to be an impact to the environment. You will definitely be hearing from our USACE, our Army Corps team, who will be working with you to make sure all of the questions need to be answered and considerations made, and then the authorization to proceed with the grant will be given. So just that NEPA consideration, we'll have a discussion later on in this workshop series to talk really specifically to NEPA, but that's one of our the big issues that causes a lot of questions and a lot of back and forth. So the better we can prepare you for it, the better your applications will be, and perhaps the better your participation with Army Corps will be to kind of expedite the process for you. So we'll get to that in a different workshop. Make sure to see there are some other questions that are in the NOFO, conflict of interest, overlapping statements. They're all in the NOFO. Make sure to answer all of those questions, as well as grant recipient, who's going to be the grant manager. If you want a letter of support, you can always send one in. You get somebody in your community who's related to the program, one of your leaders, government leaders who wants to support it. You can always include that letter. That helps with the scoring of your application when we're looking at it. And of course, don't forget a cover letter. You will send that to the director of our office. The director is John Brewer, his name, and the information is also in the NOFO. One thing I wanted to point out in the narrative requirements is there's a question that says, is there any factor that might affect the result of your program, your grant, that might cause it to be delayed, We want to know what that might be. It could be, I don't know, a storm. It could be an election, whatever it might be that's specific to your area. Mention it in your application so that we have awareness, but then also include, what is your mitigation strategy to address that potential challenge, if any. So that's just a question that's on the list that I wanted you to pay attention to. So the narrative requirements are there. Then, of course, budget narrative requirements. Make sure you're following 2 CFR 200. That's what we follow when we are reviewing and studying and making sure that we're taking care of federal funds responsibly. Indirect cost rate. If you have an indirect cost rate, let us know. Send us your paperwork for that so that we know what your rate is. You may use a de minimis rate. That's also identified in 2 CFR 200. The de minimis is 15%. That's the current rate. If you need to negotiate a de minimis, an IDC, an indirect cost rate, you can reach out to the Department of the Interior. They are the cognizant agency for all of the insular areas in terms of indirect cost rates. So that's also on our website, the financial assistance page, where you can see, who to contact in terms of IDCs. Any questions?
Yes, we've got a few. Let's see. The last one, are we required to use our NICRA if it's out of date? Our most recent one is fiscal year 25. If it is still valid, you can. Was your NICRA only valid for fiscal year 25?
I'm guessing it probably was. The ones that I've seen are only valid for a year. Or do you see ones that are longer? The ones that I've seen recently have been only valid for a year.
We get them very late, which makes it confusing.
So I'll just mention this about the the team that negotiates IDC rates. I think they've done some reorganizing themselves. So they let's see, it does take a minute to negotiate. So you'll want to check in with them early. I know that the page that you can reach them on is on our website page. There's a link to their contact as well. Let me see if I can remember it without.
And in general, if your NICRA has expired, but you are pursuing negotiating a new one, you can apply the previous expired rate until the new agreement is reached, or you could potentially switch to the 15% de minimis rate instead.
As long as you're being consistent and not kind of just bouncing, use whichever one, use one and be consistent. Okay, you prefer your negotiated rate. All right, good. All right, so yeah. And this question came up, and Haley and I were talking about this question. So if you applied for a grant in 2024 and you had a negotiated rate in 2024 that was approved in 2024, then we'll use that rate. I believe we can use that rate through the end of the grant, as even if the grant is still going into 25 and 26. I think we need to still use that rate. Okay. Any more questions? Without any more questions, I guess we'll move on. I can't see my time. Okay, yeah, we're at about half. Okay. As I mentioned, audit timeliness is being reviewed and scored. You're being scored as an insular area. So if your territory or your freely associated state is behind in single audits, you may be scored accordingly. So keep that in mind. If you can help bring them up to better speed, you probably can by managing your federal grant better, or helping your other, federal grant recipients manage grants better if that's even a part of your audit. The next topic in the NOFO, submission requirements. So submit via grants.gov. Your UEI must match. Some of you have like national governments and then maybe smaller local governments like mayors or uh, I don't know, district offices maybe. So if you don't have the capacity to manage a grant, you can work through your government to do that, but just make sure you are, setting that up. And sometimes that's the only way that we can give you funding is through your state government. And make sure SAM.gov, if you're a first-time applicant, the SAM.gov process takes a long time. We also need you to monitor it every year and make sure it stays up to date. I have a grantee whose SAM.gov expired and I can't close their grant. I can't give them any final drawdowns. So keeping your UEI up to date every year is very, very important. Again, the deadline, and there's the flyer reminding us about maintenance on grants.gov from May 16, Saturday. So it's all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and through Monday, May 18 at 6 a.m. Eastern time. So just make sure your application is ready before May 18, before that weekend closes. You'll have that last chance on Monday, but it's always dangerous to wait until the last minute. We did have one year where the system crashed and applications were just, everything crashed. And it was grants.gov. So I think that year we did have to extend because there was that problem, but hopefully it hasn't happened since and hopefully not again, but just keep that in mind. I wanted you to have awareness that the scoring sheet is in the NOFO. You will see we are required to let the public know how we score your applications. So that scoring criteria is listed it's on page 12 of my printout, and it shows basically the different points that are in each category that we are scoring by. So when you look at your merit, when you look at that table, you will see, for example, merit review is 20 points. We give 20 points for project narrative that is very clear. We'll give you 20 points. If it's not too clear, but still, okay, we'll give you 10. But this year we changed it so that if it's really unclear, you will get a 0 on that particular line item. But maybe you have strong stakeholder support, so there's 5 points that you can get there. Make sure you get that. But I do have to say that if your project narrative is not very clear, that's a pretty important. I mean, every element in here is very important. So you want to make sure that you're strong all across the board in your application. Does anybody want to add anything? Well, let me just say before I ask Christina or Haley to chime in. So we will do an initial review of your application and then you'll get a score. And then it goes forth to leadership to make the final decisions. But this just helps to give us a general sense of how your application is compared to all the others and helps us in general to make that decision. Christina's energy grants have, she has strong support from the National Laboratory of the Rockies. Is that the right one, Christina? Who helps you with your reviewing?
Some of you may know that or recall that previously being NREL, the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. They've recently changed their name, but yes, a team of contractors from NLR, not the ones that you may be familiar with, do help with the scoring.
Haley, did you want to add anything to that?
I just want to add, kind of to reiterate what you said, is the ability to write a proposal and include all of the required elements tells us a lot about your ability and capacity to actually get the project done. So if there's a lot of things missing, for example, from your proposal that are required, that are very clearly stated in the NOFO, that kind of tells us this organization might not have the capacity to actually get this project done if they can't even include all the required elements of the proposal. So just really make sure you're reading through the NOFO clearly and including all of the required elements. And like Tanya said, really giving a clear narrative so that we know we have a really good sense of what the project is meant to accomplish.
And to add to that, if you could also include, what would the ramifications be of not having those funds, that can also definitely help your narrative. Assume that if we were having a conversation about a particular scope, anything that you would tell us in person, please make sure that's in there in your narrative. Sometimes that can make it a much stronger proposal too.
And I'll just give a kind of a cautionary note. Everything is moving to AI. So should the department decide to start evaluating applications using AI, AI will be probably harsher than we will be. You'll note that we've asked you to keep your narrative to 10 pages because we, the grant managers, have to read every single application, and that takes a lot of time. It takes weeks. So that's why we want you to be clear. We want you to be concise. And should the department, there have been talks about it, should the department decide to move to AI, reading your applications, it's going to be probably a stricter read. It won't be as gentle. Now, on the other hand, you could also use AI to make sure your writing is nice and crisp, and make sure you've got the main points that you want to get forward. Just make sure you don't turn it all over to AI, because I've done some samplings, and AI is not always right. So I wouldn't lean on it, but I would also be just kind of mindful of it. I see a question from Penny on the chat about the 250K grant. So let me just give a general heads up, Penny, about, so this kind of ties into funding in general. If we grant you a grant in 2025, we want to see you start working on that grant right away. We don't want to see that grant sitting and then 1 year later it's still sitting and no money has been drawn down or nothing has come in on the reporting. That is really doesn't help us. It makes it, when people are comparing grants in the Department of the Interior in general, it gives our office a pretty bad, it's not good for us. So I'll just say about that 250 grant, Penny, that you're asking about. We are now in the month of almost April, tomorrow. And there were 11 grants for that 250K. I think only 2 insular areas have started drawing down. I know many of you have started, doing different things like putting out RFPs without success. So you've sort of changed gears a little bit. I think until the money is starting to show that it really is moving, and also that it's having an impact on the single audit timeliness, that's when probably internally that conversation would be happening again. But right now it's not happening as far as I'm seeing. Hopefully that's a fair response to you, Penny. Which also just gives some general heads up about just grants in general. All right. Yes.
Tanya, can I answer 2 quick questions?
Oh, please.
Tavita asked, what is a SAM.gov exclusion? That
Good
is something, if you've done something bad, basically, with grant money in the past, you go on a naughty list, basically, which is a SAM.gov exclusion. I've actually never encountered one. They're pretty rare. You would definitely know if you had one. But it is something that we have to check we're supposed to check every single UEI, and we're supposed to check every single person that is listed in your grant proposal to make sure nobody has an active exclusion. So if you do happen to have anyone on your staff that has an exclusion, they would not be able to really participate in a grant. And then someone else asked, how likely is it that AI is utilized to evaluate these NOFOs? we aren't currently set up with any sort of AI to read these proposals, but we think it could be potential for maybe like next year. But I don't think it's going to happen necessarily this year, is my guess, unless Tanya or Christina knows something I don't know.
I don't think we're ready for that just yet.
Yeah.
There's also another question. Are specific amounts, percentages of funds allocated to each territory, or all funds fair game for all? I think typically we try to make the distribute the funds proportionally or equally among the jurisdictions that are eligible. That, of course, depends on the amount of applications we get. If a jurisdiction doesn't apply at all for a NOFO, it's happened in the past. Obviously, the rest of the funds will get spread out, but ultimately the determination and the award decisions are made by the assistant secretary. So while we might strive for equity, that could that's always a little up in the air. So unfortunately, we can't say each area is getting this much money. We just don't know quite yet.
And then the last question is, can school breakfast and lunch be funded under TAP? I am actually not sure about that. I don't think so, but we can follow up on that and get back to you, Junior.
And if we tell you, and if we, for example, well, we will, one thing to do that we also encourage you, if you also search 2 CFR 200 and you're like, oh yeah, I found that this can be funded, you can always send us an email that says, hey, I found that this can be funded, 2 CFR section, whatever section says this. If you're also doing your research and helping us also keep kind of on top of different issues, we encourage that as well. That gets you also into the 2 CFR 100 and knowing what is eligible and allowable as well. Okay, I see one more question, Haley. 240K grant waiver.
I think that's
sure
actually the
what that is.
200,000 match waiver. Tammy, is that what you're referring to? Well, I guess for awareness, there is an automatic waiver for match of up to 2 yesterdays. I apologize. I don't know what you're talking about. So if you want to come off mute, please feel free. But just for awareness, there is an automatic waiver for up to 200,000, but I don't believe any of our programs require match, and Interior in general waives matches to the territories for its grants.
And we can also find the latest. I don't have yesterday, but we have an old kind of the most recent that I think it was in 3 years ago. We can send that match waiver, or we can make sure it's linked to our webpage that has so that you can see it. Yes, thank you, Christina. Yes, the list of press releases that tells you who's been successful in the past.
And I do just quickly want to go back to the question of licensing fees. If it's a software license, that could potentially be included, especially depending on the program. That is, licensing fee for a software is considered part of an acquisition cost. If it's part of the scope of the project, that would be an eligible cost for the project. I think, Tafina, the question about the FCC licensing fee, that might be a larger scope than, or more broadly applicable than the scope of any particular project you might be applying for. So we really can't answer that, but you could always include it in a budget. And again, if for whatever reason we find that we are not able to fund that portion of our project, we can negotiate with you to remove that from the project. And Jude, OIA's current field officer is Miss Amanda Blas, but unfortunately she's currently on military leave through September. We're trying to get a detail out there right now. But Haley is your new go-to Guam grants management specialist.
Hi, could I ask a quick question really quick?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, it's Ina Carrillo from Guam. Could we just go back to the grants portal outage? I'm sorry I didn't catch those dates.
It's March 16th through the 18th, ending at 6 a.m. Eastern on March 18th. So there is still time to submit the applications before the applications close.
And Christina meant to say May.
Yes, I'm sorry. We're at the end of our day here in the East
Yes.
Coast.
Yes, indeed. May. May is it, yes. There's a question from Richie. Oh, okay, good. Did you get it? Okay, got it. Okay, good. Haley got that question.
Yep.
All right. Let me see what's on the last slide before we continue to answer any further questions. Okay, so this is roughly our schedule. Christina already put up the schedule for the rest of the, we're thinking next month, we'll talk about the performance reporting requirement, and then also just talking generally about administrative issues related to UEIs, SAM.gov, grant solutions, ASAP.gov, and what's the difference between all of those. So we just want to thank you for joining us today. Are there any more questions before I see that Wei Hao Fang has joined us? She's one of our grant managers. We're so glad that you could join us today, but are there any further questions that you have for anybody on the team before we let you go?
I do have one. Could you put Haley's email address in the chat? Is that possible?
Oh, sure.
Yep.
I have a slide actually. Oh, good. I'll go back to the slide with all the grant managers. And so Christina will be CNMI, moving to handle CNMI. I will be handling American Samoa. Haley will be handling Guam. Miriam will be the Virgin Islands. And then my team, is any way, how is there any, Jen, can you clarify, are you guys clear yet who's doing what? Or I think that's still in transition for the FAS teams.
I think it's still in transition, but for the most part, it should be Rebecca's Palau, Martin is RMI, and then Ryan is the FSM.
Okay. Okay, there you have it.
And in general, if you are used to working with one of us and can't recall who a new point of contact may be, you can email any of us and we'll make sure that your email gets to the correct person.
Absolutely.
And yes, Tavita, Tanya will be taking over the American Samoa portfolio.
Yes, but that hasn't happened
Tavita.
quite yet. So continue to contact whoever you've been contacting. You will receive an official email saying, hey, start contacting this person. Until you get that, continue contacting your previous grant managers.
It will take a little while.
Could still be a few more weeks. Yeah.
Yes. Some of us are going on leave, some are going on travel, so different things are happening in the office. We're still adjusting, closing out old, kind of tying up loose ends. So it's not happening ASAP tomorrow. It'll take a few more weeks. So yes.
And just to answer a couple more questions that have popped in, we will be uploading the slides to the OIA website for ease of access. And Tanya, will we be using the same link for the following workshops, or will we be distributing a new link?
That's a good question. It's probably a good idea to keep the same link. I think I would just make it a recurring calendar invite.
Yeah, and maybe we can also post that link on our website along with the schedule. We'll figure out a way to get that out to you all.
Yes. And if you, for any reason, might think that you're not, just email your grant manager, the one you're most familiar with, and we'll make sure for our next meeting that we're starting to get all the names into, I don't know what is the best way. We're still working the kinks out ourselves, but I think if I post the PowerPoint also to this chat, people can access it even after the meeting.
I don't think so for people external to DOI.
Oh, I see. Okay. But if I were to upload it right now before we close the meeting, probably people could download it right away. So I will try that right now. Please while I'm kind of handling that tech issue, please let us, the team will read and see if there are any other questions.
Yeah, there was a question about the exclusion list and if it can be shared. I don't think that's something we can do because I don't think there's a way to narrow it down to our areas. And I'm assuming it's a fairly large list if we included everybody in the world, essentially, that's on it. But you can always check sam.gov yourself anytime you'd like. I think there's a way to search exclusions, and you can search your agency's UEI. You can search all the names from your agency in there at any time. And I would just recommend searching before you submit a grant proposal to make sure there's nobody that has an active exclusion, just to make sure. And if there's nobody in there, then you don't have to worry about it. And then Junior asked any guidelines on how to register online, and I'm not sure what that's in reference to.
But in general, if you go to sam.gov or grants.gov and you need to create a new profile, there are usually some pretty handy walkthroughs available with how to do that.
So I'm having real trouble finding the attached to upload the PowerPoint here. So we'll make sure, we'll try to get that to you somehow via email or put it on the link on the website. If we don't have any further questions, we will just close by saying thank you very much for joining us. And our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, April 27, 6 p.m. Eastern. We'll adjust the calendar invite, keep it on the same one so that it has, we're continuing to stay in touch on the same chain. And we'll go from there. And we'll see you again on Monday, April 27, hopefully.
And May, I see that you asked, can we get it from the folks assigned to assist us? I'm not sure what specifically you mean. You're still there.
I'm still here. I was referencing the PowerPoints. So I noticed in the list a gentleman by the name of Ryan, and his email address is assigned to FSM. And so if you're unable to upload this PowerPoint, can we just go directly to the individual representative on your end who is assisting assigned to assist each of the groups for today's PowerPoint?
Yes,
Yes.
and you can
Yes,
email
that's
any of
okay.
us and we
Yes.
can get you a copy of it as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.